Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. I brought one of my personal practices to our community, and that is that I look to people who know more than I do. I've always had mentors, teachers, guides, people along the way who can share their experience, strength, and hope. And so we've been doing some interviews. This is my fourth in a series of interviews. And today, the teacher, the leader that I want to bring to you is a longtime friend of mine. She is a newly published author, and she just kind of went right to the top. She got this really incredible book deal because the quality of what she brings is so powerful and so deep. The book was just published right at the beginning of the COVID crisis, and a lot of her tour has been rediverted. So now we are rediverted? I'm making up new words now. Diverted. And I was so happy to introduce you to her, and her name is Rebecca Wynn. I did about a 40-minute interview with her last week, and that whole interview will be available today online on our website and on YouTube and on our Facebook page. But I just brought a little portion of it today that I thought will really speak to what we're talking about with the loss and the disruption we're experiencing in our lives, what's being asked for from us now. And Rebecca, in this particular essay that I'm speaking to her about, she was experiencing a lot of losses in her garden and also the loss of her marriage. And this is the question that I asked her about.
Story at its heart, it's about attachment. It's about the meaning that we give to things because I had given an enormous amount of meaning to my garden. And it's about resistance, which is really like the fraternal twin sister of attachment. And then it's about, surrender and a willingness to, there has to be a willingness before you can surrender. There has to be a willingness before you can perspective. At least that's my experience. And I think it's also kind of a story about falling into a place of faith or trust. Because I think that's how it ends, right? That I trust that that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah,
but
I think you had said that there are two possible perspectives, which either one gave you a sense of relief. That one is that you wouldn't be able to keep the home, and but that somehow that the loss of your garden made it easier. It was, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was just you had just opened yourself to new possibilities. It was you had accepted life on life's terms, which is kind of a 12-step term, but it means a lot to me. And I find that a lot of your stories, and we share a very similar spiritual background, at least the last couple of decades. That's how we met, was in our spiritual community and our spiritual walk. And so much of our spirituality is about I can control and create the life of my dreams. And there is a lot of truth in that. And the sister to that truth is that we also have to work with what is presented to us and accept.
I have said many times that one of the most annoying expressions in the world is "it's all good." It is absolutely so not all good. But what it is, all, is valuable.
Wow.
If you're willing to let that be true. And I think that faith can be what you're left with when everything else is taken away, and that surrender peace. That surrender can look like giving up, but it can also look like faith. And that was where I landed, thank goodness, not the giving up place. But I do think that it's all valuable, and I've certainly been through a lot in my life, most of the worst of which is not anywhere in this book. But I think that the more willingness, we have to find true meaning, so we give meaning to things, but that's not necessarily their true meaning. I think the true or deeper meaning is not the part of meaning that's attached to attachment. It's the part of meaning that's attached to surrender.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Rebecca. I hope you get a sense of the depth of her soul and offering her experience. It's a series of essays, all grounded in her love of nature. And the book is available. We have an affiliate link with Amazon. So if you go to our Facebook or in the ticker on the front page of our website, if that's interesting to you, you can purchase that book, and I think you'll be fed by it. Life on life's terms was the phrase that I brought into that interview. I want to share with you, my message title today is called The End of Strife, and it's the completion of our 5-part series on the realization of spirit, on how we live our teaching, how we demonstrate it in our lives. And I will tell you, when I wrote the series description months ago, I had no idea that we would be in such a challenging time globally with the COVID-19, the pandemic. When I chose today's particular title, The End of Strife, I had no idea that this would be in the midst of one of the most strife-filled times in modern history. The universe has funny timing, doesn't it? When I was really thinking of this idea of the end of strife, it was the surrender that Rebecca Wynn spoke of, that sometimes we don't have enough information to create the exact right path for our becoming. And so life becomes cooperative, and it shows us what is needed. And even in the things that we are not asking for, haven't looked for, don't want, and would give anything to make go away, that the thing standing in your way is the way. Lisa Nichols, the spiritual teacher, she says everything is a gift. Some of them come wrapped in sandpaper. And so today, as I'm considering the end of strife, what that means, how can we cease fighting and surrender to a greater good? You've heard me speak so much of my own personal experience of addiction and recovery, but that is the most lived example of this truth I know. That at the end of my struggle, that I won the battle with alcohol by losing, by finally admitting, I can't do this. That was not the truth I was looking for as the key to my freedom, but it was. And I think what we're seeing in our world and in our country today, it's not what we were looking for. When I saw the image of the police officer with his knee on the neck of George Floyd for almost 9 minutes, George Floyd died. This is not the reflection of humanity that I want to see. But I think back to my own personal story, that the darkest time, the time of the most hopelessness, the time when nothing worked, was the doorway to something greater only by my willingness to surrender and accept what is presented. This is what is. In the step 1 of the 12 steps, it's I admitted I was powerless over alcohol and my life had become unmanageable. Don't you think we're seeing some unmanageability and some powerlessness in our culture today? That something is being asked for from us Something is being asked for our attention. So today, on this Sunday morning, we've seen 4 days of peaceful demonstrations, and then 4 days of rioting and looting and violence. And we have seen clashes between demonstrators, and the police officers. We have seen evidence that some white supremacist groups have infiltrated the protests with working their own agenda. We've seen so much trouble, and nobody has all the answers. But in all of the media that's been coming through here, all of the insight and, just sort of the description of what they're seeing, I think we get to choose from a spiritual lens, what do we want this to mean? And what I want this to mean, what I believe this means, is this time of trouble is a storm that will pass, and in its wake we will be better. I have an image I'd like to show you from yesterday, right here in Houston. It says, "This is the Houston I was born and raised in," and it's a white police officer in a manly bear hug with a black demonstrator. I love that image. So in all of the trouble that you're seeing in our news, I would like you to burn this image upon your mind. That it's possible that those who are asking for greater awareness of what black men and women have had to deal with and navigate in our culture, that they have a voice and there's something that is being asked for that we need to pay attention to. And that those who are called, sworn to protect and serve, the vast majority of them want this too. They want us to live in harmony and support of each other. Remember this image. So I feel this morning that I am called to do two things. I am called today to challenge your thinking and challenge your perception. And I'm also called to comfort you and inspire you and exhort you to the greatness that I know that you have within you. A few weeks ago, right here on this stage, before the pandemic, we surprised our own Norma Green. Norma is the one, she runs our refreshments table. She also runs our voter registration table. She's been a part of our community for 30 plus years, and she's just wonderful. What we had done is there was a documentary about the original March on Washington with Dr. King, and Norma was there, and our own Dr. Randall Brailsford got a screen capture of Norma as a young woman, and we blew up the image on canvas and we presented it to her on this stage, and she was surprised. She was like, "Why do you want me to be there?" She had no idea. We surprised her. It was a beautiful moment. This week, I got a text from Norma Friday morning. "I need you." If you are on Facebook, you probably saw that this week has been hard on me personally. I've been really struggling with seeing what I'm seeing and what it means about who we are. And I had sort of a sleepless night on Thursday night. And I called Norma and I said, "Honey, I don't have any answers, but I love you." And we just cried together on the phone. We felt our own pain and we witnessed each other's pain. It's like I really wish I could put my arms around her, but I just held her with my heart. We cried together, and then we prayed. And that was kind of it. I asked her yesterday if I could share that, and she said, of course. Here's what she responded. She said, "I'm feeling so much better. You can always use me. Yesterday was so difficult for me. I've never felt this way." And then she wrote this: "There's much more that I want to do, and I'll continue to work and pray. I love you, Michael Gott, and there ain't nothing you can do about it." We put our arms around each other and we walk through this. So let me challenge you for just a moment. We have a racism problem in this country. It is. that exists. That is the hard human level reality of what we have going on. And whether or not you agree with me, I have a simple test to see if we have a problem. If any time in this past week or two you have thought the phrase, those people, if that phrase has ever entered your thought like, well, if those people would just act right, on either side, any side, if you have thought about those people as being other than us, if there's a them in your consciousness, then you are a part of the problem. Then I am a part of the problem. Because let me tell you, none of us have yet fully stepped into oneness consciousness, and we live it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. None. And yet that is what's being asked for now. That we recognize that we are not, we're all created equal, but our culture does not reflect that. That our systems of institutionalized racism are still active and powerful happening in our country. And this killing that we saw this week, and the killing a couple of weeks ago of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna, these things that are happening, every one of those. I saw former President Barack Obama put something out, and he shared that a friend of his, an incredibly successful black man of a certain age and stature, when he saw the image of George Floyd on the ground, it broke him down into nothing. These images are powerful, and they're pointing us to a deep need for our healing. And what I believe, and because I am ordained in unity, is that our name is the path of healing. That we must heal our own otherizing mind. And here's the thing. It's so convenient to look for others and place the blame there and say, well, if they would just act right, this would all go away. And then we have no responsibility for it. That might feel like an easier way. But what it does is you have also cut off your own agency. You've cut off your own entry to be a part of the solution. That if we acknowledge that what is happening is a consciousness problem, and that my consciousness is part of the collective, then if I can do this healing work within myself, I will be informed as to how I show up in the collective, and this will begin this process of healing. You see, in unity, we love the idea that there is only one life, one power, one presence. One, it's all God. And we also love the idea that, so everyone is a part of God. And we also love this idea that I am an expression of God. And so the universal and the individual makes so much sense to us, and we love it, and we teach it, and we live it. It's the collective where we run into problems. That we know that theologically and philosophically, everyone is created equal. We can just say we know that and we're done. But then when we see that certain groups of people are treated differently in our society than others, that a black man or a woman has a different experience walking around a department store, or driving, or jogging. If we are not willing to see that the group experience of certain people is different, then we are missing an opportunity to bring the healing and the truth of oneness here into this problem, into this culture at this time. Jesus, I just bring up Jesus. The culture that he came up in was extremely otherizing. And the nature of Jewish culture was so that they could be set apart and cohesive in a very difficult time. There were lots of outside forces that would have pulled them away from their Jewishness. And so the laws of Judaism were really designed so that to create an identity An identity of people focused on monotheism, focused on worship, the best possible worship of the one God. It was a good thing. And yet, there were all these inside and outside things. There were the people that were doing it right inside, and there were the people that were doing it wrong outside. And the law was the way they did it. It was the beautiful fence around Jewish culture. And Jesus just kind of walked over it again and again. Just found all these opportunities to get out of the otherizing and into the unity. Isn't that cool? Chapter 2 of Mark, the scripture says that Jesus was walking along and saw Levi at the tax collector's booth and said, I want to have dinner at your house. Well, tax collector, please. If there's anybody that I could put other, tax collector. And so Jesus went to have dinner at Levi's house, who would be called Matthew, one of the 12. He renounced his former life and followed Jesus in the years of his ministry. And also at that dinner were undefined sinners. I like to think about, it's probably a pretty good party. You know, there'd be some wine going on and some fun jokes. Didn't sit too well with the ones who were following the rules. But here's this man purporting to be a teacher, a Jewish teacher, who was associating with the unclean. He touched lepers. Last week I shared my perspective on the Good Samaritan, which is another example of this radical inclusion that Jesus brought. So the challenge today is to search your own heart and mind for your other consciousness, to release your blame. And here's the hard one. Even stop blaming the people that are doing all the blaming. Now we're talking like seriously graduate level spirituality. When we see leaders who are shifting blame and otherizing, that our job is not to make them the enemy, but to see that they too are part of my human family. I know there aren't many people in here, but it got really, really quiet just now in this room. I just want to report that. Step 1 in the 12 steps is to admit our powerlessness. I think if we are to heal this, we must have a collective hitting bottom moment. Sure looks like this is an opportunity for us to admit there is a problem and that we must work together for the solution. So that's where I'm going next, in case you were counting. There is healing. Step 2 in the 12 steps is there came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Just breathe that in. I believe in an evolutionary model of human history. That we could judge our current day ways of being and acting with each other against what we know is possible. And I know for many of us it feels incredibly disappointing. People are even on the brink of despair around what they're seeing, the way they're seeing human beings show up right now. But if we take a longer historical view, we will see that we have made huge progress in the way that we are, the way that we do honor and recognize the dignity of all human life, the way that we have come to become more inclusive as a culture, that we have made progress. And that if we can now take that historical perspective and apply it to the future, what if it gets a lot better? What if there is an impulse for creative evolution within all human beings and we can access it, work with it, direct it, speak it, teach it, live it, and create a healing opportunity for humanity, for America, for Houston? What if we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity? And then the third step is we made a conscious decision to turn the will and the care of our lives over to a higher power, the surrender that Rebecca talked about. That I don't have all the answers, I don't even have all the questions, but there is one who does. There is one infinite loving presence that knows how to create babies and galaxies and keep them moving in the right rhythm. There is one infinite presence and intelligence that is within us, that if we surrender into its power, into that one mind, we will be guided into right action, right speech, right decisions. The End of Strife was the name of the title of this talk. And strife I think of as being the fight. It's not the same as striving. Striving means to work. And this work that we do in consciousness will translate into work we do in the physical realm. I'm so grateful for this community, particularly our Healing the Heart of America group that has been taking up these hard conversations and having them. Norma told me one time at one of those Healing the Heart of America conversations, she said, I said things in front of white people that I never thought I would say. As we begin to speak what is within us, healing will happen. But it takes willingness and vulnerability. We will move forward. So the question that I ask of myself, and I ask you today too, what is mine to do? I knew mine today was to speak about this. And some of you didn't want me to, but I'm doing it because I know in my heart and in my soul, this is mine to do today. You may not agree with the way I've done it, and you may not like the way I've done it, and I may not have done it perfectly. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty willing to bet I didn't. But I knew that I was being obedient to the call upon my life. And that what is mine to do today was to speak about this very topic. What else do I want to tell you? I spoke to another one of I'm going to just go ahead and call them our church mothers. It was on a Thursday, I think, or Wednesday. I think it was Thursday. I got a text from Sandy Fitz, another one of our beautiful leaders in our community, an African-American woman. And she said, I need you. And I was out on my walk, and I said, I can call you in about an hour. And so by the time I got back and we started talking, she said, I'm feeling a lot better. She said, I've already called 6 different places. I called the Minneapolis Police Department. I called the mayor's office in Minneapolis. I've done some work, and I'm feeling better. But we talked about what this means. She talked about her fear for her black son and the way he walks in this world. Every time that she doesn't know where he is, the fear that's in her. We talked about these things. And the thing that I love about Sandy Fitz is that she is a deeply evolved and self-aware being. And so she did 3 things that I would ask us to consider too. She felt her pain first, felt it and expressed it in a safe, non-violent way. She felt it. Because when you try to squash the feelings, sadness, anger, fear are the big ones we look for that we don't like, we'll find some way to try to not feel them. They don't go away. They will find another way to express as illness. We have to feel them. The second thing she did is she found some people to talk to about it. And I was honored to be one of those people. And then she moved into considered nonviolent action. I think that's the model. We feel whatever is coming up for us. We find a safe place where we can speak about it. And then we listen for what is our direction and what is ours to do. What is the action that we should take? Just a couple more things I want to share with you. I mentioned that I took great hope in that photograph I showed you of the white police officer and the black demonstrator. A couple other things. Yesterday on Good Morning America, DeAndre Hutchinson, who is the president of the Afro-American Police League and happens to be a sergeant in our own Houston Police Department, he was on Good Morning America, and he spoke about that what he saw happen in Minneapolis, he didn't believe would happen here because of the training and the awareness, the consciousness that is in the culture of our police department. I don't know that that's true, but it gave me hope. He talked about the need for greater accountability in policing. And this officer who had his knee on George Floyd's neck had been called up 17 times for his behavior. And that accountability and conduct review would stop some of this from happening. Yesterday, I took hope from just seeing a beautiful image of our own police chief, Art Osvedo, was thanking the peaceful protesters and then walking arm in arm with them down the street. That gave me hope. And then the third thing that gave me hope, and something unique about Houston. When I first moved here, I lived in Dallas for 20 years. I thought I knew Texas big cities, and I'm not going to get into the whole rivalry between Dallas and Houston, but I didn't know much about Houston. I came here and fell in love. This is my home. And there is an energy in this city that is unlike any I've ever experienced. An energy of possibility. I was having coffee with Dr. Jill Carroll one day, and I'd only been here a year or two, and I was talking with her about it. She'd been here a lot longer, and I was saying, places have personalities. And I love you, Dallas, but I said in Dallas, if I were to say what the personality of Dallas is make it look good. And it does. Oh my gosh, if you look at the arts institutions, these buildings that they have, and it's just it's a very image-aware place, and it's beautiful. Houston, not so much, not as much focused on the image. And I said, there's a depth here in Houston I'm perceiving. And I said, the other thing that I'm perceiving is that people work really hard in Houston, really work hard, even to the point of I do say that workaholism is the only addiction that we just universally praise, and that's not a good thing. But people do work hard here. I may be looking at you, Marilyn Huggins, I'm just saying. I love you. And she said, well, yeah, it is. They do work hard here, but it's more than that. It's that people in Houston know how to make things work. And she shared with me a story that I love and am inspired by. She said that when it came time to dismantle Jim Crow, that the business leaders in Houston saw what was happening in other southern cities, the riots, the looting, the dogs and fire hoses turned upon the protesters. And the business leaders said that would be bad for business. We don't want that. This may not be the most altruistic and high-minded perspective to go from, but it worked. Because here's what they did. They invited the black community leaders, mostly black pastors, to meet them in the Petroleum Club in the tower in downtown Houston. They had to come up the service elevator, but that's another story. And they turned to the black leaders and they said, what do we do? How do we fix this and keep the stores open? And so they worked hand in hand with the pastors and the community organizers in Houston, Texas. And Jim Crow was dismantled without a single riot, without a single police conflict. The whites-only water fountains were taken down. The whites-only signs on the restrooms were taken down. Didn't mean racism disappeared. But strides were made because people came together and said, we can do this. I'm calling on that in our city and in our culture and in us to bring us forward. To close, I had in my moments of hopelessness and feeling lost this week, I remembered that scene from the beautiful movie from a few years ago that Ava DuVernay directed on Selma. And she depicted a scene where Martin Luther King Jr. is having a moment of helplessness and hopelessness and doubt. And so he picks up the phone and he calls his friend Mahalia Jackson in the middle of the night, and he said, I need to hear the voice of my Lord. And she sang this.
Precious Lord, Take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I'm tired. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on.
Wisdom than you can currently hold. And God, we say, take our hand, show us, reveal to us our steps.
When my way grows drear, precious Lord, please linger near. Oh, when my life is almost gone, oh Lord, at the river runs deep. Please guide my feet. I need you to hold my hand. Oh, please take my hand. Precious Lord, please lead me home.
Lead us forward. Lead us into co-creating the world that is a greater and truer reflection of who we are. Dr. King told us, make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a better person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. God, help us live to that. Help us live for each other in love. Amen. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.